Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to coach dead people? Good morning, Giants. Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith, the creator of The Giants and the Smalls, wonderful book. If you haven't followed us on YouTube, go ahead and do that. Wake Up with Giants TV. You can also find us on Facebook. If you join us on YouTube, make sure you hit the alert button so you know when we go live. And then you can catch all our content. Come in, boom. I hadn't wondered how to coach dead people until I introduced the show, but now I'm really curious.
I was trying to do my best dead person face, but it didn't work. So sorry about that.
That's all right. We forgive you. But we have a wonderful show today. Nick, will you introduce our guest?
I will. We got Daniel Olexa. He is an executive coach, an amazing human. Had the honor of having him in one of my SG groups and got to know him through Steve Hardison, actually on the road trip. And so he's a hypnotherapist. He's a best-selling author. He's a keynote speaker, lead facilitator, mentor, and architect of Transcendent Living. That's it.
That's it.
That's all I got. That's it. We're over. We're done.
Yeah. No, he's got over 25 years of professional problem-solving experience and has worked in broadcasting, design, and education. But what makes him extraordinary is not his business experience. He's a master at bringing the dead back to life. And we're going to talk about that as we go forward because he's got a take on that is a little different. And so we want to welcome you to the show.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah,
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah, great day for
Perfect
this topic.
Right? Yeah.
Perfect.
This is great.
We were like, hey, why not? Halloween. I think you moved it forward just so we could do that. It's perfect.
I did. I wore my skull shirt.
I should have dressed
I just
up.
hear Oingo Boingo in the background. It's a dead man's party. Who could ask for more?
We're in the right place then.
Yeah. Well, good, man. We're going to dive into your story and your journey. And the goal with this is to really highlight for people that there are so many ways to be a giant, so many ways to go through the 12 journeys that we talk about in the book. And so we're going to dive into yours going all the way back in time. We'd like to hear about your story. Like, where did it start? What was life like growing up, if you could? And then we'll just move from there.
Sure. So growing up in the early 70s, yeah, I'm that old. I grew up with two parents who
grew up
their formative years. What's that?
Disco balls.
Hand me down bell bottoms. Yeah. I had two parents who their formative years were during the Depression and right after. So they learned lack like we haven't seen since and carried it forward like for life and maintained that mindset and indoctrinated my siblings and I into it.
Like it's a cult. Like the Depression cult.
Great way to put it, because
like, put this aluminum foil in your pocket.
Save that. You might need it later.
You'll need it later.
You need that. Don't throw that away.
I'm laughing, but I'm kind of like that too.
Wash that plastic spoon.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Oh
my
gosh.
gosh.
Don't waste that.
Yeah.
Don't waste that.
My parents.
The gristle on that steak, you eat that gristle because that's good for you. Don't waste good meat. And it was just like this, and didn't know any better at that point. I was like 5 years old. But it sank in, like this limiting mindset that, and I can run the litany. There's never enough money to go around. Every time you get $1, somebody's there to take it away. Takes money to make money, and we don't have any, therefore we can't make any.
The rich get richer, the poor get poorer.
Yeah, all that nonsense. But
Peter to pay Paul.
Lived it as a truth because it was their truth, but then indoctrinated it down to us. Yeah. And it took me the better part of 40, 45 years to finally break it.
That's not bad. That's a pretty good spin.
Yeah,
That's
you know?
quick. Nice job. You know what though? Like I think about that stuff, and I know we just barely started in your story. Isn't that interesting that that stuff is ingrained pretty dang early, that becomes our belief or our norm. It's handed down from our parents
Mhm.
and how we see and view the world. We adopt it as our own, and then we live 40 years of our life believing that.
Yeah. And what really, like, there was always this little like fire inside me that said life can be different, and I couldn't, like, it was like dangling carrot out here, and I couldn't quite grab it. But
Dangling fire carrots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was finally when I was going through my hypnotherapy training, and I'm starting to wake up into it into like, that's not the way life is. It doesn't have to be that way. You know how when you have a job where you get paid every 2 weeks, there's 2 months out of the year where you get the third paycheck. You're like, what's this? Awesome. I can't wait.
That's a good one.
I do.
One of those months was coming. It might have even been October.
I celebrate it like Christmas.
The 5 week months, you're like, yeah,
take it.
Rich.
And I know it was coming close to Christmas because my sister called me, and I had these plans. Like, I'm going to get ahead this month. As part of the journey, when I went back to school, my income went in the tank. I went from making 6 figures to making like 14 grand working retail while I'm back in school. There's a gut check.
Yeah.
And so my sister calls, and she's saying, so, we're figuring out a present for my dad for Christmas, or for our dad for Christmas. I'm like, okay, so I'm in, but I don't know what I can contribute because I was planning on getting ahead this month because of the extra paycheck. And then this bill from the state of Florida shows up for car tags or something like that. And she kicks into, yeah, every time you get $1, somebody's there to take it away. You can just never get ahead. I'm like, wait. You can't be saying the same things that are in my head in the same cadence, in the same litany, with the same emphasis, unless we both learned it from the same place. So that means it's not mine.
Your parents were my parents?
They might have been. I don't know.
There's a little jingle and you're marching down the road.
Let's go get that 23andMe test right.
That's right.
Every time there's $1, there's another $1 taken.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I picture like the old Christmas movies, like they just put one foot in front of the other, like that. Mm-hmm. Like that would be your family Christmas song. Every time you get $1, there's one taken. I don't know.
Or the what is it? Load 16 tons and what do you get? That was really close.
That's my mom used to sing that. Holy cow. Another day older and a deeper in debt.
Yep.
Yeah. So keep going. So you have this mindset and
At 5. We made it to 5 years old.
Yeah. At 5, it's like life is struggle and can't be happy because joy gets taken away. So don't even go there. Just be miserable because it's better than being happy and having it taken away. And I had to have the mindset of that I was 30 years old by the time I was 6. Had to be serious, couldn't have fun. And it was, looking back on it, it was a rough way to grow up, but at the same time, it made me who I am. So I can't, what's the word I want here? I've changed my framing around it that now I appreciate it. But there was a point 15, 20 years ago, it was like I resented it to no end because it's like, that's not the childhood I wanted. But strangely enough, that comes into coaching conversations with clients as well. Like, what I got wasn't what I wanted. Well, it's what you got.
Yeah.
What's the reframing of the story around the thing that's the fact? There was the experience, and what story are you telling about the experience? And what story do you want to be telling about the experience that actually empowers you forward?
I've got this imagery in my mind, when I teach around the unconsciousness and whatever your past was, I have this imagery of the tree rings, it's like the center ring, the tree it just is, it encapsulated it, embraced it and wrapped it, and it developed around that and grew and grew and grew. And our foundational values, we didn't really have a say in those. They were just they're handed down, and we believe them because the people that were raising us told us they were true. And so we believe them without question. And then we find out, hey, there's an alternative. There's another option. And some people, that foundation was necessary for you to even wake up. Like you wouldn't have had an awakening without that foundation. And so it's like all of these rings of your tree, whatever that looked like, are necessary because they make up you as the whole, if that makes sense. So
it does. That's what we have. That's what we have to work with. And I get into, over the past couple of years, gotten more into a spiritual space with some of that work, and come from the belief and the mindset that when we come into this incarnation, or any, if you believe in past lives, when we come in here, we sign a contract for what we're signing up to achieve, and also what blocks we're putting in our way to grow past. So it all becomes choice. Like, I chose my parents before I ever got here, and I chose these obstacles. I chose these things to help me grow into this, so that I can live this message in the way that I'm here to live it and present it.
I've heard, I did some sessions with some coaches, and we talked about DNA memory and passing down, and some people might not believe in that. That's okay. But water has memory, muscle has memory, DNA has memory. And so you're getting potentially a whole bunch of DNA memory of limiting beliefs, fears, worries, doubts, all kinds of stuff, the traumas that maybe not entirely your own. And so those have to be dealt with too, at some point in time.
Yeah, I've heard that talked about as, in some schools of thought, the inherited family trauma that is passed down for 7 generations through the DNA. I've heard that concept, and I kind of wonder how much of it is true, because there does seem to be this thing that, what my parents brought to me, what did their parents bring to them? What did their parents bring to them? And this wave just comes down over generations of, we all look to our parents as figures of authority because they're keeping us alive, particularly when we're not able to function for ourselves.
Right.
We trust them. We believe them. That must be true because they've been around longer than me. And I better believe it. Otherwise they might just like throw me out the door and leave me to die.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. But it's a serious fear. Like, if I'm not part of this this collective called a family, I need them to take care of me. And when I'm an infant, if I don't toe the line,
right,
I could die.
So did you have an awareness that what you're doing now would be what you're doing now, or when did that occur and how did that come about?
It really came about in about 2013. My running joke right now is that in the tail end of my previous career in sales and marketing and printing, that I've spent the final 15 years of that career working for 3 different family-owned companies. And I had the wrong last name at every one of them. It just wasn't appreciated. And I finally hit the wall at the last one. They didn't respect me anymore. I was done with them because they weren't open to anybody outside of the family really offering in, like, you need to be doing things differently. Their mindset was, we're at this level of gross sales. We want to be at this level of gross sales. So we just need to do more of what we're already doing and we'll get there. That's not the way it works. You need to do things differently to get
like
there.
Insanity.
Wait, is that how it works?
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. It's like, oh, do more of what you're doing already and you're going to stay at that level of income. You're not going to get up here.
Yeah.
And I finally there was one day a delivery got missed and I exploded and just walked out the door. I did wind up going back, but I knew at that point I'm out and done. And I was reading, there were 2 books that I was reading at that time. One is Black Hole Focus by a guy named Isaiah Hankel. Changed my life. That is the book that made the pivot. And then I was also at the time reading Blue Zones, about the 4 or 5 areas in the world where people live to be over 100 and they're healthy the way Americans are healthy at maybe 40 and 50. They're like tooling down the street at 103. And both presented this concept that comes out of Blue Zones called Ikigai, which is out of Okinawa, and it roughly translates to the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. It's about living with purpose.
I like that.
And I started asking myself, why am I going to this job that I am burned out on. We have lost respect for each other. And like the surface answer is always because you have a mortgage, you moron, and you like to eat. It's like, that's not it. I could do it anywhere. So I kept, why is it this one? Why is it here? And finally had an epiphany one day that I'm really good at problem solving. I enjoy it. I enjoy the negotiation of it, of like, let's get as much information as we can so we make the most informed decision. And I felt that in my core. It was like, oh, the light bulb's going off over my head, the little cartoon, and then like in my core, it's like, yes, this is it. And I stepped back to say, what do I do with that? And that's where I realized that even when I was working in teams, we were working to get things done within the company. It was always about, for me, promoting the other people, making sure that they got credit for what we were doing, even if I was leading the team. And it led me into hypnotherapy initially, and then later into coaching. I'm here to empower other people.
Was it an easy path? So you decide, I'm going to do it. You hang up your sign, and all of a sudden, Daniel's got people beating down his door.
Loaded question.
Yeah, and
I could tell.
Yeah.
Daniel's like,
what? I don't do that. I don't.
We haven't had anyone else like this. Like, yep, perfect. Just turned on the sign and flooded in.
It was like all those people who show up on coaches' Facebook's feeds and they say like, follow me and you'll get 6. Like the next day, it was like no effort at all. No, it was, oh God.
Tomorrow we have Monday morning. They have like this flood of coaches entering the coaching business. Mm-hmm. Daniel said it would happen.
Yeah, like just be here. It was
easy,
tough.
Guys.
It was really tough because even when I'm teaching, all that work starts here. It starts inside us. And I had some really dark days in particularly that first year, leaving a 6-figure income, where it literally was a 6-figure income, working for somebody else, moving halfway across the country with my then girlfriend, now wife, and literally dropping to less than 14 grand a year in income, watching a 401k go like this, working part-time in retail. Is even if I wasn't burned out in printing, the type of printing that I was involved with didn't exist where we were living in Naples, Florida. And add on that Naples, Florida is the retirement community, the 1%. That's making me feel even worse because I'm making like 14 grand. And I'm walking around this development.
1% of what they do.
Yeah, I am literally the 1% at that point.
In the other direction.
Yeah, the negative 1%.
Yeah, that's a 0.003 on that.
And I'm walking around this development of these beautiful homes where we moved in, walking my dogs. I'm like, what in the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. And as I'm standing there looking, this awareness came to me. It's like, you're responsible for this. You made this happen. You put yourself here. Stop lamenting it. You are here. This is where you're supposed to be. I'm like,
wow, that's interesting.
Ooh, wait a second. I didn't I? This is everything I've asked for. Why am I telling myself I don't belong here?
That's a tough thing sometimes, because that could be a gut punch, right? Like, you are the sum total of all your thoughts. Where you are now is exactly where you chose to be. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're like, I didn't choose that. This happened to me.
Yeah.
You could get angry about it or resentful, but the truth is you created exactly that. And that can be tough. That's a tough pill sometimes.
Coming into that space of full ownership, or like Nick would say, who are you committed to being? And it's like, okay. Who have I don't know now. I got to make my choices. And it's
don't you dare ask me that again.
Yeah.
Like, I
ask myself the worst questions.
And that opened up. It was still tough work, but that was my internal clearing of getting past all this old nonsense that didn't serve me anymore. So I could move into the place of, I can create my life. And actually I should rephrase it. I can create the life I want. I was creating my life all along.
Right.
I can start creating the life I want.
Go into that a little bit.
I like that distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many, and with clients, and I'll hold my hand up here too, because before I was aware of it, I was living by default. Whatever came along, This is what it is. I'll just take
Who
it.
has two thumbs and is guilty?
Yep, right here.
This guy.
I'll just, whatever comes along, I'll take what I deserve, which means like the scraps instead of really aligning to I take what I deserve. It means
Goes back to
everything.
the 5-year-old mentality that you were taught, right?
Exactly. I don't deserve anything. Life is a struggle, and if I don't work hard for it, I don't deserve it.
You deserve that because you didn't eat all the gristle.
That's right. Give me a little more fat, please. Give me a little more fat, please.
I'm gonna direct quote you on this.
He's like,
you can take that to the bank. Write that down, guys.
I think I will. I'm going to trademark that before we're off here, so that nobody can steal it.
Yeah,
that'll be my next quote on the website.
There you
go. And we just, in some religions or spiritual ideologies, it's called the dark night of the soul. Like really going in and seeing everything inside, all the struggle, all the pain, and coming out the other side of it. And I think that experience in Florida, and even a little bit when we first moved to California, was my dark night of the soul, because I was questioning myself left and right. What do I deserve? Why am I here? And it was coming out the other side of it and beginning to make the new connections of those who saw the light in me, that I kind of had a sense of it, but I hadn't really pulled it forward yet. Yeah. And that was the reflection I needed to really come into where I am now.
We talk about a lot of times going into the the shadow work and the dark side and stuff like that. But what you just said is others saw the light. Others saw the potential in Daniel. And I sometimes think that that's even scarier sometimes for people, is to really embrace who you could be. And you're like, oh shit, if I do that, then I have, then I've got this. It comes with it. That default, mentality, the 5-year-old mentality of what we were taught or how we were felt when we were 5 and 6, 7, and made that operating system then kicks in. Oh, well, you don't deserve that.
I'm not good enough.
Right. And so I think that's an interesting kind of, I don't know if it's a paradox, but so many people talk about diving into the dark side and loving your shadows and things like that, which I think is important as well. But also to, once you can find your inner lion and your worth and your value, what you can step into is incredible. If you can step into that light.
Can I make a distinction on that?
Please.
This is big in my work.
Please.
You're not stepping into a damn thing. You're letting it out because it's already inside you.
I like that better, because we talk about that as well. That it's already here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's been mudded up. And when we really recognize that fire is there, it tends to sit right about here. When we let it out, that's the power. It's not about stepping into it.
Yeah. A lot of that gets masked, right?
It's like Care Bear stare.
Well, it's like the Golden Buddha statue. It's the Golden Buddha story.
Yeah.
I don't know said story. Tell me the story.
So
Tell me a story for bedtime.
150, 200 years ago, we're not sure exactly when it started, but the end date is in the 1950s. Yeah. There was an army invading Thailand, and they were taking all the gold, all the statues they could find, melting it down and taking it back. And there's this huge golden Buddha that was in some village or town somewhere. And the villagers knew that if it was found, it would be melted down, and it's gorgeous. So they mudded it over with clay, so it looked like a terracotta Buddha. Invading army comes in, like, oh, terracotta Buddha, we're leaving it alone. And they just kind of go on. There's a period of occupation, generations pass, and it's a terracotta Buddha. In the 1950s, there was a decision made to move it to a new temple. And in the process of moving it, I think it was dropped, but I'm not positive, but it got damaged. And when they went to inspect the damage to see how are we going to repair this thing, because it's like 10 feet across by 10 feet high, they found the gold underneath. Wow. And now it's this massive, just incredibly beautiful statue that's on display.
Smashing terracotta pots, trying to find gold pots.
I have gold in that vase on my deck. Yes, I do.
Just don't go smashing leprechauns.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the same thing.
So how did your coaching that you do now evolve? Because there was an evolution between where you started.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's an evolution through the whole thing, and I love the adaptation to change that you had. So that evolution from where you started in coaching to where it is today, can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah. So initially, and I see this as essentially a truism, even with my students, that come into this giving field of empowering others. I want to help everybody. And that's where you help nobody.
Yeah.
And my initial distinction was, the generalities of live your ideal life. And it kicked a little bit. And then over the years, I connected more with the avatar of who my ideal client is. And it's me about 27 years ago. The guy who's been in the field, doing his job, doing the thing that brings him money, doing kind of okay with it. But coming to a moment of existential crisis where I have the toys, I have the number, I've have all the other trappings, have the title, but I'm not happy.
Is the trappings like the drippings in Turkey? It's like the extras. What is the trappings?
It's like the nice house,
Oh.
the partner, the spouse, all the toys, doing the hobbies, going on the vacations that really don't unplug for. It's kind of, I'm going to go to this place and have an awesome time, but then I'm online the entire time because there's work going on. I'm the only one who can possibly handle it. So I'll be there even though I'm on vacation.
Right.
There you go. And just those who give up, like giving up living and that's why I say I coach dead people now, that come to this moment of I died before I chose to fully live. And now it's time to come back to life and resurrect this corpse.
Keep going. There's more.
Keep going. What else would you like to draw out of me right now? Deeper. That sounded like my hypno voice.
Deeper.
Go deeper. No, okay. So tying that in is you go to the beach, you're living, you're not there, you're not living. You're going through all the actions and the monotony and the things that we do, and we trade off our life, our living for, and we have this superficial thing that's out there and it's presenting to the world, and everybody judges that and they're like, oh, you're phenomenal. What you do is amazing. And they kind of iterate what we tell them, nobody could do this without me. I'm so amazing. I'm so good at what I do, and we seek that praise. But inside there's this emptiness. Like you don't go there's no shutting off. You don't go to a beach and just be at the beach. There's this constant need to please in some form. There's this constant need to, I'm describing myself, and hopefully this ties into what
I thought you were describing me. I was like, sounds right.
Yeah. This sounds like an infomercial.
Everyone at home's looking around. Like, yeah, that's me.
How do you know so much about me?
What am I wearing? State Farm.
State Farm. Tan pants and a red shirt. Yeah. So that evolution from where you started in coaching, because I've done that too, where I'll open my doors and I'll coach anybody. And then it evolves to where I coach occasionally here and there. But I do more what we do here, the training and the books and the other things. And so there was this evolution into that. And I don't even know moving forward what the evolution is going to be. I have some ideas, but anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, but I want to tie in the idea of what you're sharing here is that we feel so dead in that stuff that we're not living. And so, yeah.
And it becomes easy and familiar.
Okay.
Like, this I learned growing up, life sucks, then you die.
Yeah.
Okay. Life sucks. I must be living. I'm fulfilling the requirement that life sucks. So therefore I must be living.
Yeah.
And it's just so much a lie. And even I think about presence, and you know Steve Hardison.
Yep.
Having met him and been in his presence and experienced the way he holds presence, it's phenomenal. It changed. I just met him in May, so like 5 months ago.
Yeah.
The way that he holds presence and speaks of presence that is inspirational. It's like now
Did you get gelato with Steve as well?
I was at the gelato place, but I didn't have any gelato because we went right into a conversation. When I walked around the corner and saw him sitting at a table by himself, it's like, I am not walking inside to get gelato and missing this opportunity. I can always get the gelato.
Right.
There's something though about eating gelato while enjoying the flavor and the flavor of Steve Hardison at the same time. So you'll have to plan another meeting.
I will. Let me grab my copy of Giants. I'm going to step aside here for once because I got to show you something really cool in it.
Okay.
When we were there that night and he was handing out the book, so I've got the little officials from Steve Hardison sticker on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Someone
Which
else
I love.
at the table.
I love that he does that. And there's other coaches that do that too. They put their sticker on the book and hand it to their clients.
Yep. Somebody else at the table wanted Steve to write their name in the book in his handwriting. So I'm like, hey, would you do that for me? So
nice.
My name in my book, written by Steve.
Oh, that's amazing.
Most excellent.
Huh. That's cool. And you've got the story in there too. I see that. So
yeah, if you're ever in Santa Monica, you stop in for gelato, go see Simone. What is it? Dulcinero?
Dulcinero. Yeah.
Gelato. Best
Sounds like
best in all of California. I think in all the world, really. Italy is second rate.
Yeah.
I've had it, but not at that meeting. It is really awesome gelato.
We might tag his Simone's interview on the back end of this video because he has a phenomenal story that is really inspiring. So maybe we'll put that as one of the end caps on this. But what you're talking about is that incredible ability that Steve, other people have it too. I've seen it in other people where they're just fully here. And whatever is happening right here is what's happening. They're not worried about the future. They're not worried about dying. They're not worried about physically dying. They're not worried about any of this stuff or their past. They're fully present. I've had moments of that.
He stayed present the entire time too. I talk to a lot of people and they're looking at their phone. They're somewhere else somebody else is talking to them. Steve was fully engaged and interested and genuinely interested in what was going on in my life.
They're clicking tickers on the bottom of the screen. It's ridiculous. Now it goes to Daniel.
I'm feeling myself drop into it right now. It's like,
yeah.
And the more I've sat with that over the past few months, it's like, that's all there is. There. If I think back to that me in 2013, who couldn't sit on a beach without worrying about what was going on back at the shop or what's the other thing. And then I'm not present. I'm not present in life because I'm living something that's out of my control or giving all my power away to that rather than being right here in whatever this minute, second, split second, nanosecond is that is the present moment. That's where change happens. But I can't. I gotta be here.
Is right here, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So you bring people back to the present. I like that. I mean, the idea of bringing people back from the dead, hovering in the past. We have this tendency to do that. Is I've got this terrible past, and all these things happened, and I've defined myself by that. I mean, that's death right there. Living in the future in fear about what the future holds and not being able to move anywhere because you're so scared about what the future holds. I grew up with that. I have, the anxieties still come up, but I've learned to get back into this because the more I get back into this, the less anxiety I have because it's all future based. And so bringing people back, I love that idea from the dead. Like the dead zones would be the zones that are no longer, they're not workable, right?
One's over and you can't change it, and the other has yet to be created, and you create it here.
What do you do? What do you do for somebody that feels that way, that they're starting to be conscious or aware of it? Because I'm sure there's a lot that aren't, but they're starting to be conscious or aware of their behavior or the way that they're being. How do you advise somebody to move through that and to become undead? I don't know.
Slowly, first off. Slowly.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see so many coaches out there who are more cheerleaders and pushers, like,
Yeah.
go achieve your goals now, go. But it's not sustainable because the client hasn't owned it for themselves yet. So, and we all, like, some people might own it in that moment. Others, there's that transition phase of, I'm a piece of crap and I don't deserve anything. And they're like, wait, maybe I do. But if you push them into the riches right away, the old limiting belief is going to come back and just knock them right back down. It's like the story, the research into lottery winners. They win hundreds of millions of dollars, and in 3 years they wind up bankrupt. The actual curves of bankruptcy rates match the general population because they never changed their story of their association to money. So there's this delicate phase of, what is the new? What are those beliefs that no longer serve you? And what are the things that we need to create to move forward to help you be in this space and really fully own it? So there's a bit of slow way down, and maybe even come to a pause point to sit with it and come into presence. There's a free ebook on my website called The 3 Keys to Transcendent Living. And the first one is just stop. If you are spinning in the wind, you are at the control of the wind. You got to be a tree. You got to ground yourself, and you have to be anchored. And then you can start making decisions. But until then, you're just like, ah!
Wait, what was that? I want to see that one.
Ah!
Well, Ryan, you talk about the chalice, right? And the capacity, and that if you haven't developed the capacity for a certain thing and it comes into your space, it's going to overflow because you haven't developed your chalice or your cup to receive it, right? And so, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I did some work with Carrie Tomich. Carrie Tomich was on the show last week. Was it last week or yeah, it goes fast. But she also sent me a meme that she had found where it was a pyramid of wine glasses stacked up or cups, and they're champagne maybe, and they're pouring champagne on the top one, and it trickles all down to the bottom. Where I have this vision of most of us are running around with this cup in our hands, with whatever capacity or liquid is in it, and we're pouring it here and here and here and here and here. We look down and it's dang near empty. Versus if you fill up your cup, it can overflow and people can get the full experience of Nicholas Townsend Smith, Ryan Robert Morris, Daniel something amazing.
I thought your middle
Olexa.
name was Lion, dude.
It is Ryan Robert Lion Morris.
Robert the Bruce.
Yeah.
Robert the Lion.
It's Bob.
It's Bob.
But
I know somebody that named their kid Bob as a baby. Hey, Bob. That was weird. He's like 6 months old. His name is Bob. But it happens.
Named Bob before that?
Bob the baby?
Bob the baby. And he watched Bob the Builder, I'm sure. Yeah.
So, but that whole concept,
useful information
of the chalice, I actually got that in a meditation, which if anybody knows me, I wasn't into that stuff. Like that wasn't something that I was like fluent in meditation. It wasn't me. Decided to go into one with somebody. It was a guided meditation and saw that. I actually just talked about it today with another coach, and I had a picture of it where I don't know if this might not be able to be seen on. Boom. Okay, so there's a portal and a chalice that's overflowing. And so it came so clearly that it kind of freaked me out. And it was directly talking like to me, like, Ryan, you're the type that gives, and only to your detriment, because then when you need something, nobody's around, or you give all of your time and there's none less for your family or your friends or for yourself, and you never slow down. I was just a workaholic, and that's been something where for me, even though I was happy and full of life, I was almost dead inside because I felt like this obligation, like if I'm not serving or giving, then I'm not a good person, or I'm not worthy to receive in return. And it was crazy. But that's stuff, that's like some of the stuff we get into, right?
And so many people in the heart-centered service-based industries have that same mindset. My value is in my giving.
Mm.
And then they don't take care of themselves to be able to give at that high level of value, and they burn out.
So for those of us that have fallen into that trap, where do we go? So we stop first, slow it way down. Then what's the kind of the next phases in that Daniel teaches?
In that pause point, start thinking about what you want. What do you want to create? So bring intentionality into it. Like, so I'm here, rather than living a life of default of, I'll just go take whatever's coming. What is it that you want? What makes your heart sing? What will you define as happiness, as success? And no judgment on it. If it's a certain number of income, great. If it's a certain job title, great. If it's a certain type of family or relationship, great. What do you want to create, instead of, I'll just take whatever comes along and I guess that's what I deserve? And then sit with it. And initially, don't share it with anybody.
Why would you say that too? I think I know why, but I would just want people to know.
I'll do my best Dirty Harry quote here. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one and they all stink. Don't let somebody else
killers, right?
Yeah. Don't let somebody else take a dump on your dream.
So around that affect, when somebody else puts their energy on your dream and you haven't built up the capacity to handle that, right? It will impact you, and you'll take on what they put out there as though it's yours, and it's not yours. You just haven't developed your attitude and your own energy enough to where if something hits you like that, it still has an impact, right? So that's very important. This goes back to the capacities. You've got to develop yourself to be able to handle emotionally the emotions of others, because you've got to identify what's yours and what's not.
Yep.
So I like that.
Yeah, because you're at that point, you're like Ralph Macchio at the end of Karate Kid, and you're standing on one leg trying to find your balance, and there's this other dude being like, sweep the leg. You got to get you have to get strong for yourself. Yeah. And the way I talk about it in the ebook, when we lived in Florida and tropical storms would come through, like heavy winds and everything, and invariably after one of those heavy windstorms would come through, there would be a TV reporter out standing next to an oak tree that got blown over. And they're standing there with this huge root base behind them. It might be like 8 feet across. And the story is always the same. Look at the size of the roots on this tree. Look at the size of this. The circumference of it is so massive. And it got blown over in the wind. Well, yeah, the tree was 60 freaking feet tall. And yet it had an 8-foot wide base that was about this deep.
Because it didn't need to go far for water,
right? It didn't have to go far. It had its immediate needs met.
The redwoods do that. So when we went and saw the sequoias, they were huge, monstrous trees, and their roots were just spread out and shallow. So it really wouldn't take much to blow them over. Yeah. But there was some support between them, obviously. But yeah.
So how do you develop that? Like, so you're in that, you pause, you become intentional, you sit with it, make sure that is the right feeling. What does it look like? And then you don't share right away. So you don't want the dream killers to come in, and even though you might be excited, like, I figured this out, just mellow, just chill. It's cool. Keep cool, my babies, as Conan O'Brien would say.
Ease up.
Yep.
Then what? So then from there, with the roots and stuff like that, how do we transition from that point?
So that's where we get the gap. I'm here now. Where do I want to be? What's this outcome that I'm dreaming of? Or like Stephen Covey would say, what's the tree on the horizon that you're walking toward? And then what are the steps that get me there? Going back to the metaphor of the tree, that, the water table was 2 inches down. So all my needs are met within 2 inches. But now that I'm living beyond the immediate, I'm not living for paying a mortgage anymore. I'm not living for eating lunch tomorrow. I'm not living for whatever the immediate gratification is. I'm living for that bigger or deeper thing as I take the action into it. Even if it's a small action, my root base is going deeper, because now there's a new need that has to be met to achieve this level of growth. And the root base has to start tapping deeper, and it taps deeper through the taking of the new action and the learning of it. And just go slow. And the depth will be discovered. And even the falling down, the failing isn't a falling down and failing. You learn something new that taps your root base deeper, and you realize that it's okay to fall down. It's not, failure isn't this terrible thing. It's a learning opportunity.
We hear all these videos of like overnight success and do it quickly and shortcut to $1 million and all this stuff, like 10x your returns, Grant Cardone, or any, all these people. And for most people, what you're describing is the process that most of us go through.
And they even went through it. Now they're trying to get other people to shortcut it so that they can like sell a whatever $1,000 or $10,000 program.
Or yeah, exactly.
I'm going to tell you how to shortcut it. And then you wind up, there's a great meme that I see float around on Facebook every now. It's a joke about people who try to bypass the spiritual awakening. And it's this person standing on a staircase and they're stretching their legs to go like 6 spaces from where they are now to total nirvana, and like all the steps in between of like shadow work and this and this and this. You're going to trip on them. You just can't get there immediately.
Yeah, nice.
It's going to come back around.
I was going to say there's usually like overwhelm or burnout or anxieties or something that you're not dealing with will keep coming back up until you can deal with it. And I like the small steps because then your capacity grows. It's the same thing as the root system, is that which we persist in doing becomes easier to do. The nature of the task doesn't change, but our ability to do it increases. I love that quote. It's that same concept of building that root system so that it holds firmer. The more that you can work on that and stretch, and it doesn't have to be, we talk about being giants and taking, like a giant takes steps. And in your mind, you're like, oh, they take giant steps. No, they actually take normal steps. A lot of times they're small steps, but to somebody with, smaller capacity, they might seem huge. So start where you're at. Take a step, celebrate. I think that you celebrate those too as you take those steps, and it's okay to be proud of, like, wow, we did that. Now what else can I do? How else can I do it? Who else has done what I want to do?
Celebration's huge here, because if particularly as we're growing, we tend to be in problem solving phase everywhere. There's always problems. And we go from solving problem 1 to solving problem 2 to solving problem 3. And we're constantly in this loop of problem solving, not recognizing that I've solved 5 problems and saying, I have the capacity to solve problems. I've made my life better. But if we're in that tunnel of only seeing problem solving, it's just a tunnel, just one more problem. There's that roar again.
Yeah, roar. Well, the problem solvers of the past can, if they're not conscious, become the problems of the future. And so being conscious of how you're solving problems and staying mindful around that, staying present, right? Because you get spun up, you go back into the cycle of living in the future, living in the past, living for the numbers, living for the recognition, and you lose sight of what you're doing. You're not alive. You're not present, right?
And even I bring in the concept of parenting here too. How many parents, like mine did, are indoctrinating their children to the problems of the past rather than being present with them, with what exists here today?
Right.
And we could use it, we could say it's like 30, 40 years ago, that world doesn't exist anymore. 2 years ago doesn't exist anymore. The world in 2019 was vastly different than the world we are living in currently. Right. It's that close. Be here with your kids. They're the ones who are experiencing this moment. Right. They didn't grow up in the 80s or the 70s or the 90s. They're in this reality of what's going on right now. So I spoke at a parenting thing a couple months ago, a parents symposium, and I was like, I will be the person that you will all hate because I'm the person without kids who's going to tell you how to raise your kids. But I was on the other side of that equation, so I speak with authority.
I've been a kid.
I've been one. Yeah.
You know what I kind of hear too in that is that we talked about Steve Hardison. It's not that he doesn't have challenges. No. It's not that that life doesn't happen to Steve Hardison. Kidding me? Like it's still there. The way that he transmutes the energy he takes those challenges and he flips them just faster. His capacity has grown to the point where he recognizes the limiting thinking or the worry, the doubt, the fear, the judgment. And he has made that decision a long time ago to catch those, and he's gotten faster and faster and faster. I think about like if you take a little league or a t-ball player and stick him in a major league batting cage with a Randy Johnson back in the day where he could throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. You stick the kid in that doesn't have the ability to hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Of course they're going to fail. But, if you can stick it up on the tee, hit, and then you can go through the lob and, coach pitch, right? Then you start, getting 50-mile-an-hour fastballs and 60 and 70 and 80. And pretty soon you're whacking 100-mile-an-hour fastballs because your capacity has increased. You can't expect to be a Steve Hardison tomorrow. I mean, that would be cool and all. Everybody would love to have that happen. Or a Daniel or a Nick that has worked on this stuff for years and years and years. It's probably not likely, and you're probably setting yourself up for failure. But you can start putting it on the tee, and as those 5-year-old limiting beliefs come flying in, and as that's the mentality comes in, the fear, the worry, the doubt, whatever, you go, oh, that's that. Catch that, put it on the tee, change, and you can change and transmute that. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? And then that's those small steps, those baby steps, until pretty soon you can catch those coming at you faster. Is that kind of
absolutely
accurate?
It's learning and continuing the baseball metaphor. It's like
I say that because it's it's baseball season. So
I'm good with that. Although the Dodgers are out, so I've got to but that's okay.
Yeah, the Stros still happening, right?
They are, but they lost the first games. I don't know where they're at right now. We'll find out. Think about when you were in a gym class in probably elementary school. Before you ever went out on the diamond to play softball, you were maybe in the gym or maybe on the field, but learning the fundamentals. Like, how do you field a ground ball? You put your feet together, put the glove on the ground, the ball rolls in. And it's like that repetition of doing it to build the muscle memory, build the synaptic response, that when you're in a game, you don't have time to run and stop and position, put the glove down, but you're building the muscle memory that you can adapt to the changes that are coming, that if the ball comes fast or slower, maybe you have to bare hand it one time. I'm trying to think okay, my glove would be on this hand. This is my throwing hand. Maybe you have to bare hand it, but you've built the muscle memory through the repetition of the fundamentals, and you can always go back to the fundamentals. They'll save you. You can always go back and revisit that even when you are 100-mile-an-hour fastball hitter. I think about when I lived in Kansas City, and the Royals truly sucked while I lived there. When my wife and I left, that's when they went to the World Series twice in a row. But it was, as I remember everything about that team in that space, they went back to coaching the fundamentals of baseball. And they brought the fun back to it. And that's what helped them transcend to that level of, they were back-to-back World Series. And the first year they were 1 out away from winning the series.
One of the things I hear in that is that, like in our book, in the Giants of the Smalls, we start with unconsciousness, we end with unconsciousness. You're talking about heuristics here, that our unconscious behaviors become our heuristics, and they're mathematical and quick equations we can do without thinking. And our goal with everything is to do it without thinking, because the more we can do without thinking, the more we can advance. And so, but there are some behaviors like you're talking about that really don't serve us. So unless you're conscious of them, there's no change to happen. And so we start there, because when we can wake you up to what you're doing, then you can create new behaviors and make those your new unconscious behaviors and loop back around where you're growing. Like it's just that systematic, simple, self-similar, boring, Groundhog Day type growth that we're talking about.
And that's, it's part of the hypnotherapy that I do with clients, that the belief structures that are floating around in here, they didn't just get there. Yeah. They more than likely, they happened they were embedded, impressed in one of two ways, either a moment of shock or through repetition of hearing it over and over and over.
Which goes back to what you were talking about with your sister or whoever said the same thing that you did. You're like, wait, we heard the same thing?
Yeah. And then with the hypnotherapy work, once we find out what that story is, through recording a session and delivering affirmations to the client that are the empowering ones that carry them toward their outcome, when they drop into that different level of conscious awareness, subconscious awareness,
Yeah.
because the churn of this is out of the way. And in the state of hypnosis, we're having direct conversation with the subconscious. Listening to that recording, hearing that new repetition of thought that actually serves their higher growth, it embeds faster, replaces the old belief system. And now they're living that new belief system of I can achieve, I can do this, I can, and I am.
Yeah.
Probably
Wow.
the I am statement is the bigger one.
I like that though. I can lead to I will or I am. There's you've got to bridge that belief, and if you can't believe it right away, I actually dig that bridge. Do that first. If you can't believe it, start with that.
Well, so something I'll share, I've never done hypnosis, never been hypnotized. And it's a great way to do it. It really is one of those programming tools that could help somebody. What I've known from my experience is that there's another way too, but it's the longer path. It's the harder, more drawn out path, and having somebody like you that can help shortcut that. I'd love to experience that sometime, is just, to just get that programming in there. And a lot of it is just, you're letting your guard down, because those beliefs act like your guard system, your walls. So anytime something new comes up, you resist it and it's blocked out because your guard is up. And so like you're saying, the more you can get your guard down, and I've found acceptance to be one of those tools that gets me into that space of letting my guard down. It is what it is. And I'm open, and which is hypnosis. It's exactly what you're describing. It's the same thing. It's just, you've got to get your guard down and open up, and beyond that, even recognize that you have that behavior in the first place and that belief in the first place.
You might not even be aware of that stuff because of that's the subconscious mind, right? And so, that's where I find value in hypnotherapy, is that I feel like, you use an analogy of like tying, you're like playing life with an arm tied behind your back, and you don't know. And then you go through hypnotherapy and build that subconscious and release those limiting beliefs. And all of a sudden you're like, why? What? Like, whoa,
I got 2 of these.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's kind of, I mean, that's a weird analogy, but I felt like that as I went through it. I felt that. I felt the difference, and it was, I showed up differently. And through repetition, and I'd listen to it every night for like 30 nights straight, and then I think it was weekly for a while. And I should go back to it because I've got the recordings. Is go back to it. But amazing. If you've never done it, I highly recommend it. You need to get a hold of Daniel and schedule something so that you can experience that. It's worth the money. You've got it for I don't know how you do it exactly, but I imagine you do some sort of recording or conversation with them, and they can go back and reference. But I'm just telling you how to run your business. You get a recording apparently. I don't know if you do. But there you go. So you get a recording, and so you can go back and listen to it again and again and again. And as you have other things come up that you become more aware of, and you're like, man, why is this? Why am I having a hard time with this? You sit down with Daniel and go through it again, and talk about other parts that you can put. You can it's like implanting seeds right into your subconscious. You can shortcut it. It's pretty cool stuff.
And it's like, the way it was described in my training, it's like when you're working with a client, it's peeling the layers of an onion. Like the outer layer is what we're aware of at that moment. And as we do the deeper work, the next layer, the next limiting belief, until eventually we get down to that core state of like, I'm good. And it's not something you rush through. Everybody's going to, when I'd say the biggest challenge that I know I have as a hypnotherapist, and probably most out there, is that idea that's presented in movies and stage shows that the client's out of control and that I'm in control of you. And it's the
I was thinking
biggest
like
piece of crap.
Office Space, where he's like deeper and deeper, and then he has a
Mhm.
heart attack, and he never snaps his fingers, and the guy
Yeah.
wakes up, and you just don't care about anything anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
It
I'm gonna
just
go ahead
doesn't
and
quite
need
work
you to
that
come
way.
in on Saturday. No.
Yeah.
Deeper and deeper.
Yeah, it just doesn't quite work that way. The client's fully in control. They are in an altered state of consciousness. They're fully aware of everything going on, probably more aware than we are sitting
You're not
and
gonna
just
be a
watching.
duck or a pig or something goofy like that.
Only if you want to. It's only if you want to.
See,
I
the world
don't
is
make
your
people
oyster.
dance like chickens
I feel like chicken all of a sudden.
Unless you want to.
Yeah.
unless you want to.
So Daniel, as we wrap up here, I mean, we're coming to an hour. If you were to
Wow.
share
Goes
a
fast.
piece of wisdom with yourself, let's say you go back in time and you want to share something with yourself and you choose the point, it doesn't matter when, but what piece of wisdom would you have given to yourself to carry forward?
I think what it would be is I'd go back to probably my 4 or 5-year-old self who was connected to things he didn't know he was connected to, because I used to hear voices when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I'd say, don't lose this and don't grow up too fast. Enjoy childhood.
I love it. And there's no guy that's going to come take your dollar.
Nope.
Like,
I'm going to take his. My freaking dollar now.
I'm the dollar taking guy now.
That's my dollar. Thanks for holding it out for me.
I picture Bob Barker on the price on Happy Gilmore. The price is wrong. Yeah, that's my dollar now, bitch. Yeah. Daniel, this is awesome, man. I really enjoyed this. Ryan, do you have some final thoughts as we wrap up?
You know, I think about all the things in it and how how your story it resonates because we talked about, oh, is that me? They talk about me. The way you described your story has a lot of similarities into the way I was raised, how I grew up. And, I mean, we live different lives, but there was some similarities, and so it rings true to a point where you can look back and go, yeah, man, that's kind of how I was taught. That's the things I was, because it was the way it was, and that was, what you did, and so that's what you do, right? But I love that even though it took you 40 years, because at 40 years old, I had the same kind of, epiphanies happening in my life and the waking up and realization, not where I want to be. And maybe that's not the way it should be, or the way it has to be, or the way it could be. Maybe there's something different. Maybe there's something more. In the book, Rit looks up. He hears giants in the distance. And Homeboy looks up and sees the giants, and he has this moment where he starts thinking giant thoughts. And he says, well, man, what could life be like? How could it be different? Could I really have that? Who could teach me? Oh, they know. So a Daniel knows, a Nick Smith knows, maybe a Ryan Morris knows. Who are those people in your life as you're starting to recognize the similarities that Daniel had talked about? Maybe that's you at home sitting there and going, geez, is this it? Is there something more? And so I encourage you to reach out. Go follow Daniel and go back and watch the videos that we've put out there that might wake you up to your giant potential. And follow Daniel, follow giants like Daniel, because he's done a lot of the work. He's still working on himself. He's hit different pinnacles and levels and gone, oh wow, I'm there. But he looks up again and says, oh, there's another level. There's another level. And he's following people like Steve Hardison, those other giants that have gone before him. And I think that's important key. And so I'm just very grateful for your 40 years.
Thank you.
And I wouldn't change any of them, even though that some of them were probably really difficult. And then there was a lot of things that weren't fun, but they've made
Definitely.
Daniel who he is, and I am very appreciative of Daniel. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And
That
I'd
was
say
awesome.
to anyone watching, if what Ryan just shared resonates with you, and as you follow the giants, you've read the book, you're watching the shows, if something's calling you and it's this entire concept of being a giant makes sense, that means the giant's already inside you. Stop living small and let it out.
I love it. I love that. That's a great way to end the show. Everybody that's watching, remember, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And so keep stepping, and we will see you in the next video.
Love you
Take
too.
care.
See ya. Happy Halloween.